Today we're going to change a community. We're going to show them what love and fellowship and brotherhood and sisterhood's all about. Today we're going to change a family's life that's been devastated. We're going to make their lives better because you all showed up today. Tony's watching every step, man. Those who know him, he's going to be up there with that smile and that cackle. And I probably have to fight him eventually up in heaven because I'm sure he doesn't want this attention, but he knows we're doing it for his family. God bless every one of you. Thank you.
It was always about three things. It was spreading the word of Tony's sacrifice. It was about providing support, not just financial, but emotional support for his family that lost so much. And it was for the TAC Unit members who had to bury 2 of their officers over the last 8 years to help them heal, to help them be involved in this. And that's what I thought about every day, was for those 3 things helped get me out of bed. And I felt like he finally got the attention he deserved.
It's moving. It is absolutely moving. Todd Baxter, Monroe County Sheriff. Welcome back to the next episode of Behind the Badge. Obviously, you can see what we're talking about today. And Tiz, we got a very special guest in the room with us.
Oh yeah,
Sergeant Brett Sobieraski, the person that's featured in that video. But knowing you as a human being, this was way bigger than that. You nailed it in that video. You brought respect to a fallen that might not have got all the respect he deserved because of the time we're in. You made the widow cry, and I say that with all passion. She is an awesome woman, Lynn, and you raised a lot of funds for a fallen officer's family, and that was great. But people may or may not know you did that by running 50 marathons in a row from 8 states, from Florida to New York, just for the hell of it. And so that we want to talk about you a bit, and then also the cause, more importantly, of what this is all about. First of all, welcome Behind the Badge.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm very excited. And, we've been brothers for as long as I can remember.
1992, I think,
yes,
right?
Sir.
That's amazing.
That's exactly.
How about a little bit about yourself? We know if you're from Rochester. If you're not, we're going to share a lot more of that video of who you are and what you accomplished. It's simply amazing, superhuman stuff. But who are you as a person? Growing up in Lockport back in the day, maybe a little bit about yourself.
I grew up, born and raised in Lockport. What a great little city. The one where when the lights came on, you had to be home. Mm-hmm. City parks like a half mile away. You'd ride your bike, spend all summer, all day long at the park, then come home. Walk to school, never took a bus until my senior year. Just a great city. And my father was a police officer there. A detective. He retired after 28 years of service. My uncle, Charlie, he was a detective there. He retired after 35 years. And at the ripe age of 21, I became a police officer there. Right. I got to work with my dad for about 8 months. It was so special.
Precious, yeah.
And I got his badge 15. It was really special. And then and I worked there 4 years, and they started doing layoffs. So I didn't get laid off. I had enough seniority, but we heard about Rochester, and they took lateral transfers. Mm-hmm. So in '92, I transferred here, which was, at first, leaving your hometown was, my kids would have had teachers that I went to high school with. I would have known everyone, and it was a little strange leaving, but it was a great career move. Came here in '92, and then when I left, my cousin, Denny Sobieraski, he got on the job. There's been a Sobieraski on that job for 50 years or 60 years. He just retired. He retired before I did, somehow. I'm not. He was a little smarter than me, And I came here, and I fell in love with working in the city. Yeah. And one of the reasons I came was I always wanted to do narcotics. Narcotics work just really interested me from the first day I got on the job. And I would never be able to do that in Lockport. It would have took me 10, 15 years to get on this drug task force. So I came here, and I think I went up to the task force, or I went up to narcotics here in '95, so 3 years.
Oh, that's quick.
And I had the time of my life up there, doing search warrants, buying drugs. And I took the sergeant's exam, and I didn't want to leave. But Captain Wales, you're leaving. You're not going to turn it down, which was great. Was great advice. And then lightning struck. I went out on the road for about 2 years, and the war on drugs was churning at full speed. They doubled the size of the narcotics unit, and I got back up there.
Amazing.
And I said, I'm never taking another exam again. I grew roots into the floor there. I loved every minute of it. And I tell people, sometimes it gets maybe the police union mad at me.
Right.
But I'm 90% of the time they pay me too much money to do that job because I loved it so much.
Right.
And 10% of the time they didn't pay me nearly enough. like when things got really hairy, or when you're pulling drugs out of a toilet that's overflowing.
Oh, sure, yeah. Fun work.
Exactly.
People don't see that on TV.
Like, no, you don't see that stuff
don't
on
see-
TV. But just I worked over 25 years as a sergeant up there, and ended up on the drug task force, Granite, which was awesome. It brought all these entities together. We stopped competing, and we started cooperating together, and just incredible.
Yeah, great narcotics officer. And then SWAT team. Obviously, we were brothers on the SWAT team together, and you're an amazing operator, but also a great leader in the SWAT team.
So, and I talk about it in my book that, I came from a big deficit. I smoked for 16 years,
Right.
2 packs a day. I was a horrible example for my kids. Then all these perfect storms came. And one of the biggest perfect storms, I say perfect because they came at the right time.
Right.
If one didn't happen, the next was getting on that SWAT team at 37 years of age.
That's old.
And being around tough,
Seriously, that's a young man's game.
It is.
And
But
woman.
being around tough men, not just physically tough, but mentally tough. These guys, they refuse to ever fail. And if they got it wrong, they got it right and trained. They kept doing it until they got it right. And they would never give up. And I remember that saying, iron sharpens iron, man.
Right,
I was like the soft
right.
piece of lead, though, at
Yeah.
the time. And I'll tell you this one story, which I talk about, is we had a long training day, and Sheriff Baxter ran the training days. And they were hard and they were long, and you went home and you were tired. And he was trying to get us to go home. He's like, come on, we got to clean our guns. And he was really pushing us. And I was like, he must have a hot date or something like with Mary, right?
We're married. Thanks for clarifying.
So everyone's like, man, he's really trying to get us out of here. And then somebody finally went up to him and it's like, what's going on, Todd? He's like, I have to go run 18 miles tonight. I'm training for a marathon. And it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life at that point. I was going to go home, have dinner.
There's a guy who just ran 50 marathons, right?
I was going to go home, have dinner,
Right.
prop some toothpicks under my eyes to play with the kids for an hour and go to bed. And I was like, I don't know how a human does that. And I still remember that to this day. So that the SWAT team really helped form me. As far as mental toughness was the first step in this process.
It's amazing.
And it doesn't stop there, like you said as well. The family ties going into law enforcement. Your son Zachary, 8.5 years.
Yes,
we
man.
spoke offline about it, and you said it was a proud daddy moment.
It was, man. I pinned his badge on him, and there was a lot of tears flowing that day. Like just so proud that and I always knew when he was born, like you could tell he was going to be a police officer. Like it was in his genes, and so proud of both my boys.
Yeah, they're both great kids. Just
They
wonderful.
are.
I was talking to your other son the other day out in the plaza, and great conversations about motorcycles. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah, I've been blessed with great kids.
so one of the things that that transformation you talk about, and SWAT maybe being the impetus for that transformation, but you wrote a book, Gray Man, and that's just a phenomenal story about we're all kind of just sometimes just lingering, right? And how do you take yourself to your greatness? How do you take yourself to whatever that means? And it's all different. That's what your book talks about. You don't have to be a super marathoner or swim across Lake Ontario that you might have done, or run 100 miles straight or 50 hours straight or whatever your next challenge is going to be, right? Just get yourself better. Be in the next position. You were a smoker, 2 packs a day, overweight, and look at you now. I mean, the physical and mental feats you're doing is incredible. Gray Man, besides, that, I mean, what else did you try and get out of that book? I mean, what's the idea of you authoring a book?
It was really about this, I say an average guy, me, who was born just supremely average, except for athletic talent. Like people have a lot of slow twitch muscles, they have a lot of fast twitch.
Right.
They thought it was funny to give me no twitch muscles. They said, let's give this guy no twitch muscles, but let him have these visions of being great globally without the means to be great. And then I finally realized as I went through life that greatness was personal greatness, not comparing myself with other people,
right.
but like how far was I able to turn myself inside out during these events and training, and how far did I come from where I started? Like that was really like what it comes down to. My 100-mile race is somebody else's 5K.
Right.
Like it's not. You stop comparing to the Joneses. We want to look at the Joneses and have what they have or do what they do. Like how about we just worry about ourselves and making ourselves better?
It's funny because I'm running a few miles with him, just a few miles. He's like 35 marathons in. I jump in for 3.5 or something. I go, the whole tortoise and hare story, right? It's just like your tortoise is my hair right now. It's like so he was smoking me just on those runs, and he's already 35 marathons. But that's the point. I mean, you were pushing me to a new level. just out running with the MPA. Yeah, every day you were challenging yourself just a little bit more. You were getting PRs, and the 50th run I think is one of your fastest, right?
It was, and it was a weird like flow where I fully admit that the first 2 weeks I was in some really I call it deep water,
Dark places, right?
And my mouth was barely above the surface. Like
Wow.
I was struggling mightily for the first 2 weeks. And then things started to click. In those middle 2.5 weeks, I started holding my own. I started feeling a little better about myself. And then those last 2 weeks, my body adapted,
Yeah.
and I think more of my brain adapted. And where I caught it early, thank God. It was like the 5th marathon, and I was with my son, Zachary, and I was just pacing outside the motorhome waiting to start, and I was procrastinating. And I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
I didn't want it to start because I knew about the suffering that was going to happen. And when I started running, I caught myself. I said, you were just procrastinating for like 10 minutes. And like, why? Because you're going to have to do it anyways. So why would you just walk around the edge of the pool? You got a cannonball in and get it done. The sooner you start, the sooner you finish. And ever since then, I leave the motorhome and I'm gone. Or I get out of the car, we take a picture, I'm gone.
There's no hesitation.
Let me
Zero.
ask you this too as well. How did the whole process of 8 states for Maz start? I mean, like, what happened? I mean, did you just come home one day and you got that thought process and you say, you know what, like Forrest Gump, I just started running and I couldn't stop. You know what I mean?
I have this problem, the problem is once something gets into my brain and it burrows into it, I cannot let go of it until I do it. And the real backstory is I wanted to do something for Daryl Pearson when he was murdered in the line of duty. Mm-hmm. And I procrastinated and I procrastinated and I procrastinated. And when I got around to wanting to do something, I was actually going to run around the track at East Rochester for 48 hours and say, you can come out and join me for a mile or a quarter mile. And I was just going to run for 2 days. And they talked to the family and they just grew weary of all these fundraisers. It was a year later. Every time they went, that scab got ripped open again. And, and they just... The healing process couldn't heal because everyone was having fundraisers. So when Tony was murdered, I've regretted that ever since, that I didn't do something for Daryl. I did go do a race in his honor down in Maryland, but I didn't raise any money. So I knew I didn't want to procrastinate with this one. And I started thinking about, what could I do that could match Tony's, persona? That guy he was just everyone knew him. And to know him was really to love him. And so I started thinking about, and one night, literally, I woke up in a sweat, and I was like, 8 states. I'm going to run through 8 states because the tactical unit number designator is 8.
Right.
So I was like, how could I do this? And I'm like, I'm going to go through 8 states, starting in Florida. And people told me originally, they're like, how about you just do a marathon in each state? You do 8 marathons, and then you don't have to buy a motorhome. You're not gone for 50 days, for 7 weeks. And I thought about it. I'm like, it just doesn't match his sacrifice, and it doesn't match his personality and who he was as a man and as a father and a grandfather and a son. So when I was on my 8th marathon and I finished it, Ryan Hickey, one of my SWAT brothers, looks at me. He's like, "You'd be done by now if you listen to us." And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'd be in a warm bed tonight, right? My own bed." And so I kept thinking about that, and I passed it along to Lynn, who. People think Tony and I were best friends, he's the godfather of my kids, and we've never worked together. I don't think I've never been to his house. I've never even been to a mutual party, but it was just wrong what happened. It was wrong that his death died in a news cycle. It was wrong that there wasn't the fundraising like there was when Daryl died because there was that residual anti-police sentiment still, sticking to the carpet. And I said, somebody's got to make this right. And I knew I wasn't going to do it myself. I had so many people behind me helping me with this. But I think sometimes a person can make a difference.
Yeah, and you did huge there. And I mean, you talk about things that go on in the world today where people are not putting themselves in front of other people. And you sat there and you sacrificed. You talk about iron sharpens iron.
Right.
That's what that was, man. I mean,
Absolutely.
I couldn't believe it when I said he's running from Florida. I said, I only catch planes to Florida.
I'll admit, I spent 2 months in Florida. I don't like driving there. and when I drove back home in March 1st, I'm like, oh gosh,
you actually took almost the route, right?
Yeah, I'm like, this is crazy, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to run this.
I'm going to run all these hills.
And, it was, and what I come to find out is, like I received so much more than I gave. Like I really did. And we'll talk about the great, like gracious people I ran into and the other law enforcement agencies. I got way more out of this than what I put in, man. I really did.
You know, you said it. I mean, he was the physical specimen doing this run every day, just a machine, incredible mental physical machine, with an incredible routine. Whether it was getting up in the morning, the routine before he runs, the routine during the run was actually fascinating, and then the post workout, you know, the post every day with the rehab. But you were going nowhere without a body being there with you, at least, you know, at any given time.
Of course.
Forward, and sometimes 3 or 4, and as you got closer, you know, they started coming in waves, which is such a blessing, you know. And so it was a team effort. It really was. I think also mentally, right? I mean, just to talk to someone at the end of the night about.
So, like, and I admit, like, and the only people that came down were people that I love. And when I do these things, it's only, like, I don't let strangers in for some reason. People that I trust are usually my SWAT brothers or people I work with. And I'm a vampire, man. I feed off other people when they're next to me. Like, I feed off their souls. Like, right. I really do. They lift me up, and it's like this giant security blanket with these people that I love and the people that I would never want to fail in front of. So, like, I don't think they understand how important they are to me and how selfless they are. So they all also do their own kind of suffering so that I can succeed. And it's just incredible that I have this group of brothers and sisters that are willing to do that.
Yeah, and Laura, too. I mean, she came down, and I think one of the stories is she actually tried to interrupt with his routine. Mm-hmm. It's a very specific routine. When maybe a pasta, she's an Italian lady, a little pasta dinner for my boyfriend, and like, I can't say the words you said to her, but no, don't screw up my routine, honey.
Yeah, I'm like, I said, the old Brett, like the nice Brett that loves you so much, I go, he's not here anymore. It's like, Brett, this is my way. I have to keep doing what I've been doing for the last, 30 some odd days. I can't change my routine. And but she put me back together when she was down there. I had some lingering injuries that she solved overnight. And just like, I'm so lucky to have her, really. And you tell your significant other, by the way, I'm leaving for 50 days, right. and she supports it, you know? Right.
Yeah, he tells that story so nicely, but there was a few choice words, just like at mile 19. You know, you had this set regiment, 3.5, then 3s. After that, stopped at the back of the truck, got your routine drinks, your routine apple pies, Nutty Buddies, ho-hos, right? Had a set routine and the same mileage, changed sneakers at a certain mileage every day. But at mile 19, nice Brett here, calm, cool, raising funds for people all the time, always giving back to the community. Seriously, this is one thing he's done, the most significant, I think, but he's done 100 of these fundraisers for people. He's pushed kids in 5Ks to raise funds. But nice Brett. Then I seen angry Brett every day at mile 19. He just took on that. You didn't want to run with him mile 19 because it was going crazy. And he'd stop at mile 22 just cussing out those hills and saying how much he owns those beep, beep, beep hills. And those hills are my beep, beep, beep. You know,
that's crazy.
And mile 19, man, a switch flipped. And it just did. I'm like, I'm tired of this road beating me up for 19 miles. It might have been 3 hours or whatever into it. And I'm like, I've had enough. Now it's my turn. My turn to beat you up. And definitely a switch flipped, and I would get faster those last 7 miles than I would.
I don't think anybody volunteered to run with him 19
After a while,
25.
I'm like, who's up now? Everyone turned away.
No, I'll get the Gatorade for your next stop.
Well, let me ask you this, too, as well, because when you see marathons, when they're running, 26.2 miles?
Yes.
You're doing it day after day after day. The mental aspect is ridiculous, man. I don't know how you held up. And like you said, for him just to sit there cursing at this hill while you're running, which I don't blame you. It'd be like mind tricks to me. You know what I mean? How did you do it?
It was all mental. Your body's not meant to run 50 marathons in a row. My body's so mad at me. But I would have these deep discussions with my body while I was running.
Right.
I'm like, you got to cooperate, man. I know what I'm doing to you is bad, but I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this knee to be sore. We have to figure this out. And I would have these internal discussions with parts of my body to bring them around, because it's a glass half full or half empty. If you say this thing's gonna sideline me, it's probably gonna sideline you. If you're like, hey man, listen, we're gonna fix you tonight. We're gonna do a lot of rehab and prehab on it. And when I get up, I expect you to cooperate. I expect my hip. I expect you to stop burning when I'm running. But I would have all these little pains that would just come and go at different parts of my body. But there was a couple nights, I'm not lying, early on when I didn't know if I'd get up the next day and run it. It hurt that bad. Stopped me in my tracks. was fairly certain like it would be like the end of this. And I wake up the next day and it would be doable. And I think that's what my whole book was about, is when I finally realized that running or swimming or biking had less to do with physicality than a mental mindset. That's when this page really turned. And that's when I started finding personal greatness. And the biggest thing I did was, early on, everything hurt. Everything was painful.
Right.
And I had this little tiny pain silo in my brain, and it would overflow. And I would back away from it because I'm like, oh, this is painful. And I would slow down, and I would turn away from this giant flame. And then I figured out what pain, I had a really deep discussion one day with myself about what pain is. And if you burn your hand on a stove, you bring that hand into your center, you're kind of like in a standing fetal position, you rub it. Or you crack your funny bone, you rub it and bring it in. I didn't do any of that when I was running, so I finally figured it out. It was discomfort. And discomfort and pain are totally different. So what I did was I started labeling things that were painful as discomfort. I built this giant discomfort silo in my head. And I started emptying that stuff out of that little pain silo. And I almost never use that pain silo anymore. And I know discomfort, we can live the rest of our lives in discomfort. It's not pleasurable,
Right.
but it's doable.
Right.
Where with pain, it's totally different. Like, you can only live with pain, like chronic pain, so long. And so that was when I really turned the page, when I figured out that what discomfort was, and I differentiated that from pain.
Wow.
Think about it, 50 in a row. In 8 states for Maz, we're going to talk about the objectives in a second, and if you believe objectives are met, which I do. But he built in 2 buffer days, just in case there was an injury that you couldn't overcome or you really needed that rest day. And he comes back into New York, comes back into Monroe County, comes back into Rochester. He's got the 2 buffer days still in his hip pocket. Didn't have to use them. So he goes out and runs 2 more marathons. And some of this for you, because you didn't want to take those days off. It just wouldn't have been good for your body, wouldn't have been good for your mental to run that last one 2 days later. That sounds, that's plausible. But you still got to get up the next 2 mornings and say,
Right.
I could be laying in bed right now, and I'm going to run another. And that's what your book is about. Just if someone picks up that book and reads it, just do one more thing. Just do one more, make yourself uncomfortable. Breathe a little heavier. Take that challenge, read that book, whatever that greatness is, make yourself smarter. Take an online course at college, write anything. Just make yourself better every day. That's what I got out of Grayman. And you showed that with, I'm going to run 2 more marathons. Now that's obviously grandiose, right? That's incredible. That's mind-numbing for the rest of us, right? But the fact is, that's exactly what you're trying to tell people. You smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a couple of days and, a couple of packs a day, and we're overweight, and we're on that, like most cops, that cardiovascular disease program, right? That we're going to kill ourselves. And I think that's the whole thing, that if anybody personally can get out of this story, and we'll talk about Lynn, we'll talk about the fundraising in a second, but if you can get anything personally out of this story, read that book, and you could be one step better every day.
Yeah, and I laugh because it's never been about running. Running was just this means. Like, people who want to go on and maybe get a secondary education.
Right.
Maybe get a master's. Maybe you're a teacher and you want to become a principal.
Right.
Maybe you want to start your own business. Maybe, maybe just a million different things. It's never been about running.
Right.
It's the act of being somewhat uncomfortable and becoming, finding your personal greatness, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
Wow. That is powerful. Now, we all know Sunday, big day, Here you coming into town, which is unbelievable, by foot.
Supposed to have a horse.
Right.
There it is.
And it was huge. I mean, when I seen the news people out there and the supporters, that was amazing, brother. And for you to come finalize that track here up on those stairs, man, it's unspeakable.
It was a day. It was that morning. I left, and I looked at my girlfriend and I said, my hope is that this is not some type of dream.
Right.
Honestly, and I meant it, that I only did 1 marathon, and I dreamed that all these other ones I did, and I actually starting day 2 today. Like, I'm going to wake up and be like, okay, start day 2. And it was just a culmination. It hit me really hard that it was coming to an end, and that it turned out much grander than I had ever thought for a lot of different reasons. And Sheriff Baxter is one of them. He planned it like a SWAT operation, the ceremony. No stone left unturned. It was this PowerPoint he came out with, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, man, this is going to be great. Like, this is going to be great.
And it deserved it. And that's the picture I wish we can focus on just a bit. Lynn and Brett came up with this idea, and Lynn gave him 10 stones, heart-shaped stones. And the idea was he'd keep one, and beautiful Lynn would keep one forever, and the other 8 would be placed one per state.
Wow.
In a significant place, and Brett, being Brett, thought of this idea. I'm going to save the New York stone and have Lynn place it at the monument where her husband's name is engraved in the monument. And that was such a precious, precious moment that we were able to witness that with the bagpipes playing. And brother, that's what it's all about. The objective, I believe, was met. Raise some funds for that family. They're going to be hurting for a long, long time. Money doesn't replace Maz, but we should step up to the plate and make it a little more plausible, right? That they can do things, or they can have things. Who knows what happens with retirement systems and things, but let's just take that burden off. You did that, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I try to put it in perspective. My last post is that, we all did a great thing that day. We honored his sacrifice. We showed that family almost a year later that he got the attention he finally deserved of his sacrifice, and that not just here but through 8 states.
Right.
Like we spread that word of him to strangers, and strangers came out through 7 other states to honor a man they did not know. And what I said was, we all went our separate ways on Sunday, but they still left without a father, a husband,
Yeah.
a grandfather.
Yeah.
When we went home to our families.
Yeah, that was some powerful thing there. Like you said, you not only touched, the things you did during this process, but you made a remarkable memory for that family.
Yes, and one that was so deserved. Like it was deserved. It was delayed, but they finally got what they deserved. And we were over 100,000 in funds.
God
so
bless.
It's money still coming in. It's incredible.
I think it's any cop's fear. We know the sacrifice of the job. We know the peril we're placed in. It doesn't matter where you work. The fact that you wear a badge, right, and a uniform. But our fear is, leaving the family, right? Our fear is my sons, right? It's not about me. It's God forbid they got to go to my funeral. God forbid that's got to be Mary someday. And we're willing to make that personal sacrifice, but you don't want to have the family make that sacrifice. And that's exactly, I think, Brett, the most important thing you showed is to Lynn and to the family. It might be almost a year later, but you didn't get your due justice, and there will never be justice when it comes to the mourning process of that loss. But we're going to stand up 1,000 strong. We're going to stand up through 8 states. We're going to lay it all on the line for you, that your sacrifice is at least acknowledged, and our love for you. And so I know you're not here about accolades, and I know you're here, but if those missions were your objective, and you put a lot of sweat, tears, rubber on the soles of the shoes worn out, a lot of pain. Brother, congratulations, and we thank you as a community of cops that you were able to do that for Lynn and the kids, and God bless you.
Thank you. And again, it was, I at times had the easy part of running. It was all the people that, either in front of the scenes or behind the scenes that made this possible. Yeah. Like I could never do this by myself. And all the folks like you and Under Sheriff Brown and all my SWAT brothers who came down. It was, people that sacrificed, family time's important time, especially in law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
And when all these folks sacrificed their family time to come down for me to succeed during this, is just incredible.
That's because their family wanted to do it too. I'm speaking on behalf of my family. They were so anxious they couldn't come with me. They were so annoyed that my son was so annoyed he couldn't. But they sacrificed. They took turns babysitting. That's just my little family, right? That my son would babysit with my wife and vice versa. Whatever. Everybody. There were so many people committed to your objective. You'll never know. And we're going to roll those names as much as we can at the end of this podcast. We do got to talk about one particular police department down south that just came out. There was a lot of police departments came out and across, but you kept on talking about one police department down there that just would not stop and came out. So I want to give them credit.
So I was coming into North Carolina, and there's a fella down there that used to work at RGH, and he couldn't get a job in New York, so he got a job down in Gastonia, North Carolina. And Gastonia is in the county of Gaston, and Gaston Sheriff's Department doesn't have a road patrol. They just have the jail and the civil. So there's a county of Gaston police department. So I'm a mile from the border of North Carolina, and I see these 2 county of Gaston police cars. And I'm like, maybe they're there for me. So I run over to them, and it's this female captain and I think a sergeant. And she's like, son, are you that New York boy running from Florida? I'm like, ma'am, I am. She's like, you got here fast. She's like, we're not ready for you. I'm like, well, they can catch up. Like, so we get to the state line. Now there's 4 County of Gaston police cars behind me, and we take a picture at the sign. I start running, and then maybe a mile later, I had this funny feeling. I look back, and there's 12 police cars behind me in a bomb truck that escorted me for 12 miles, and it was the County of Gaston and the City of Gastonia. So we come through town, and they had a special teams training day. And it was an outdoor cafe, and they had them all do their lunch there. And I ran running down the middle of the street on Main Street, and they were just cheering like it was like the Tour de France and like the New York City Marathon all in one, carrying the flag. And so we finished for the day, and they're like, come back to our police department. You can keep your camper in the gated area. So we pull in the gated area. I was with Kevin Flanagan, and another police officer comes out with 2 key cards. He's like, here's the key cards to the police department. You have full access. The cafeteria's on the 2nd floor. The showers are on the 1st floor. Ice machine is on the 5th floor. And we have a washer and dryer around the corner in this little Kwanzaa hut. And gave us full run of the place. So there we are. It's a big police. It's like the size of Greece probably.
Right.
And we get in there, we get lost. It's that big. We're wandering around, and people come up shaking our hands, knew who we were. And then once we got settled back at the motorhome in the parking lot, I bet it was shift change. I bet you 30 officers came over, shook our hands, offered condolences, gave us donations. It was incredible. Wow. Truly, and so then the next morning they're like, "We'll give you an escort out of the city," and I'm like, "You guys did enough, man. Like you guys just did enough. I appreciate it, but I'm gonna go my own." It was a 4-lane divided highway. I get out that morning, and there's no shoulder on it, and the cars are just whipping by me. Like literally 18-wheelers. I'm almost getting hit. And I'm like, I should have got the escort. And I look around the corner, and there's Catawba County. They show up on their own.
Wow.
And they give me an escort. And then Lincolnton City, they give me an escort. And so the whole rest of the day, I didn't have to worry. They shut 1 lane of traffic down, getting hit by a car, which I probably would have happened.
Probably would have been roadkill by now.
North Carolina was all of North Carolina. I was sad to leave that state.
Yeah.
Out of all the states, the people and the police departments treated me like their son. Like truly like I was one of their own. And if you can imagine, it was Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Imagine a chief called Johnny Rhodes. If you imagine a North Carolina chief named Johnny Rhodes, exactly what you think he looks like is what he looks like. And he beeps his horn. He goes, "Son, I've been waiting here to." Everyone called me son. I've been waiting here to meet you. And I'm like, "I'm stopping right up the road, chief." And he personally gave me an escort. And he's like, "Where are you heading tomorrow?" And I told him, and he looked at me. He's like, "You should have picked a different route, son." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "It's the North 18 mountain you have to run over." And I said, I looked at it on a map. It looked flat to me, chief. He goes, "You should have went east or west of that." He says, he's like, "You're gonna pay heck tomorrow." And I was like, whatever. Like I don't know. I hadn't hit any real mountains at that point. The next morning I'm running, and I'm 3.5 miles in, taking a break, and doesn't he come driving by off duty with his wife by happenstance? He goes, "I saw some shirtless Yankee running up here." I knew it was you. He comes out, gives me a big hug. And his wife goes, "He talked about you all night."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I go, "Where's the mountain, chief?" He's like, you're about 5 miles, you're going to hit it. And I'm like, "Can I come work for you?" He's like, he goes, "I'll get you an application right now." And his wife goes, "My parents have a double wide trailer right up the road for rent. You can stay there."
There you go.
And I was like, it was so funny.
Southern hospitality.
And so I hit that mountain, man. It was 4.5 miles up that mountain. It was so high, I ran through a cloud at the top. I met these kind people, and I just yelled over to them. They have it was almost like their vacation home. And I was like, "Does this mountain ever end?" And they were shocked. They're like, "What are you doing running up this mountain?" And I stopped, and he had a Reagan Bush election shirt.
Oh, really?
Like 1984 hoodie. And I'm like, "What a great shirt." And we started talking politics, and he's like, "Left and right." He goes, "The far left and the far right are both crazy.
Yeah.
How about we meet in the middle?" And I'm like,
man.
Common sense, man. Like, what do we meet in the middle? And they gave me a tour of their house, and they're like, "Look at our deck." I go on the back deck, and it's a straight drop off, like 200 feet down. I don't like heights, as you know from rappelling.
Right.
And gave me water, and he's like, "What's the donation link?" And he puts it in his phone. He's like, "I just made a donation just now." And it was 4.5 miles up that mountain. And I said, "How much longer do I have?" And he's like, "You're almost there." and I got to what I thought was the top, and it wasn't even close to the
All right.
top, man. When I
The chief
finally
was
reached
right,
it-
huh?
Yeah, he
There was
was.
a climb.
He was. We ended up in Sparta that day, Sparta, North Carolina. And that mountain almost tried to kill me. It really did.
I'm sure at mile 19 you said a few choice words back at it, though.
Back
knowing
then,
your-
I was still struggling.
knowing
at that
your
point.
MO. Well, Brett, you're a brother. You're a phenomenal human being. You're obviously a great athlete, but your humanity, and that's what he's going to rename the whole tour the Humanity Tour, because of the stories like that, it just didn't end. But none of that would be possible. And I tried to articulate this in a tweet one day about you're making this all percolate to the top, right? It's just sitting there waiting to come up. And by you just coming through and creating a dust storm coming through these communities, coming into Rochester, coming on the Civic Center Plaza last Sunday, that's what it's all about, man. Some people just got to step up to the plate and make this good.
Yes.
Come to the top and stop with the BS of all the bad, right? It's there, but you forced it to the top, and we really appreciate that. And that picture of Lynn, I think, says it all. We can raise $100,000 or we can raise $2, but she's got to remember that we remember, right? And you made that statement loud and clear, objective, Matt. So proud to call you friend, and God bless what you did.
I call it an odyssey. It really was.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. God bless you.
Thank you.
Till next week, folks, be safe.